Hi YouTube, and welcome to part 3 of Dumpster Linux. Now, to get this far, you've already realised that this is going to be a bit of a learning curve. But it's a learning curve that's worthwhile because once you've gone through it, you've basically got knowledge that can't be taken back. You'll know more about the insides of that little mysterious box. You'll also realise that a lot of it is modular. You can just take bits and pieces out and put more pieces in, so long as you've got the room in your case to mount them, so long as you've got the appropriate socket free on the motherboard, and so long as you've got enough power sockets, you can add things and really specify your own computer at the end of the day. There was one other thing that I neglected to mention in part 2, which is that as well as getting your hands dirty in a dumpster machine that you don't particularly care about, and also reading up on that Haynes manual on the subject, but what will finish it off is watching videos of PCs being built and maintained. I've got one series, I think it's a 5-parter. It was filmed about 3 years ago, so my video camera and microphone are not the best, but if you turn up the volume and follow the series through, you'll be able to see a PC being built from parts and put together. It really is all modular. The worst part about it is mounting the motherboard and making sure the processor and fan are okay. That really is the worst part of it. From there on, it's pretty straightforward. So now we're going to come to the next part. We're actually going to turn a computer on. Yay! The following parts could happen very quickly, so I thought I'd walk you through them before we actually do it, so that you've got a feel for what's going on. Now, a few things will present themselves to you in very short order. You've only got a very short amount of time to press the necessary keys if you want to go for the options. When you hit the power button, you're normally presented with an option that says press F2 or Del or some other key to go into setup. If you don't press a key, it will go into the next step, which, assuming you're booting from the Linux CD or USB stick, you'll get what looks like a keyboard and the symbol for a human being. And if you press a key while that is on the screen, that's usually found at the bottom center of the screen. It will go into another section. If you don't press anything to that, then what the CD will try and do is go into a live boot. Right, so we've got 3 different things that we could wind up with here. If you press F2 or Del, you'll go into the BIOS settings, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. If you press a key when that symbol is up, or those 2 symbols rather, you'll go into the Ubuntu's Tools section. That allows us to do things like the memory check. That's pretty much the only one that I use in there. Or if you go through, you'll go through to the live CD, which means that you will boot the operating system from the CD. Now, it'll be slow, potentially painful, and a bit rowdy, depending on how your CD whirs things. If it's pretty whirry machine, then be prepared to have earplugs on hand. But from both the tools option and the live install option, you'll have another option, which is to install the operating system on the local hard drive. And we're going to go through these in turn. So I wanted to, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the BIOS. It's going to be quick. After we've had a mess around in the BIOS, I'm going to reboot again, and we'll go into the tools, and I'll show you the memory checking. After that, we'll reboot again and go into the live installation. When we're in the live installation, I'll then start an install, and we'll take it from there. Oh, are you ready? Deep breath. Right, remember, if we do go a bit too fast through this, you do have the ability to rewind this video. So I'm going to hit the power button. When I do, you'll see a splash screen in the middle, and up in the top right hand corner it'll say F2 for setup, F12 for boot. We're going to come to boot in a moment, but right now I'm going to hit the power. So you'll see the splash screen. You can also hear the fan of the processor, and up in that corner you'll see F2 to setup. Now I've pressed F2 and we're into the setup. Now you can see here that the options are on the side for this BIOS. In some BIOSes they're actually across the top, and the options come down from the top. Here we have the ability to go up or down the menu structure, and we can expand or contract just by pressing return, for example. So we can go into any of these sections. Some of them will give us information that we can't change, like this is telling us about the processor, its speed, its type. We've got information about the memory, 4 gig on board, it's running at 800 megahertz, stuff like that. More importantly is the boot sequence. Now I'm just going to zoom you in on here. Telephoto is that way, and you can see that we have here the first device that it will try and boot from is an onboard or a USB CD-ROM drive. So the first thing it'll try and look for is a CD-ROM. We have one in here, so that is the first thing it'll do. If it can't find one there, it will then look to the onboard SATA hard drive. If it can't find one there, it'll look for a USB device. Now you'll notice that the network controller is not present because we actually haven't plugged it in. There is one but in the machine, but we haven't plugged it in. Or it will look for a USB onboard or USB floppy drive. Many machines are coming without floppy drives these days, and they have done for a while. On top of that, the next option down is going to be drives. Now I'm just going to move the camera a little so you can see this. And drives actually controls what's in the machine, and it's telling us that the drives group contains options and settings related to drives and the hard drive controller. We've got various fields. We've got a diskette drive, there's 2 SATA channels, there's the option on how SATA operates and how smart reporting is. So we're going to expand this. The diskette drive, there isn't an internal, but we could use a USB one if there was one attached. I've just noticed that you can't see that, so we'll just move it over there. Or there's read-only. Now something like this would be able to use, the read-only option would be used, say, by a company that wanted to restrict how floppy disks were used in the organization. Or you can just switch it off, off completely. SATA 0 is normally, you'll see that this is on. You can just see the on to the right there. And that's the one that the hard drive is usually attached to. SATA 1 is usually what the CD-ROM is attached to, and if a company wanted to stop people from using the CD-ROMs even though they're in the machines, they could just turn this channel off and the BIOS would not bother looking for any device on that channel. SATA operation, normal or legacy. Now this is an interesting one here because SATA has some advanced features, and if you're loading like Windows XP for example, you might have, and XP blue screens when you try to install it, then or says I can't see a hard drive. This might be the reason. You might need to set the SATA operation to legacy mode, then XP might actually work. Smart reporting, don't worry about that. You have onboard devices here, integrated network controller and all the rest of it, and you can switch these things on. Integrated NIC, network interface controller, you could switch the onboard network off if you wanted. Integrated audio, you could turn that on or off. For example, you would turn the integrated audio off if you were putting in an expansion card that was also audio. You can control the USB controller. You can control the rear quad USB, and you could turn that off, the rear dual USB or the front USB. So an organization could say, well, I want the rear dual USB active for the keyboard and mouse, but I don't want the quad or the front USB active in case one of the employees puts a memory stick in it that's got a virus. So these are the kind of things that we're looking at here. One of the other things that I'll show you in the boot sequence is because we're actually running in a keyboard only mode. How would you actually move those options up or down? Let's say I wanted the hard drive to happen before the CD-ROM drive. How would I control that? Well, it pays to look at the bottom for any instructions that it would give you. And down here you can see that you've got press space to include or exclude the devices from the list. So we could actually include or not the devices. Delete to remove the device if it's not present. Up, down to select a device, or UD to change the device order. So U and D is what we'd use in this case, and you also have press enter to save the changes, escape to cancel the modifications. So it pays to have a look in the BIOS, because if you've got an old one which is text only, then this is the kind of thing that you're actually going to have to look for. Right, so we've had a look at the BIOS. We're going to press escape, and we made changes to the field. We actually want to discard that. we're going to press escape, and it's going to give us the traditional options. I'm just going to widen this out a bit more, and that is, do we want to remain in setup, do we want to save the changes we've made and exit, or do we want to discard the changes we've made and exit? We're just going to discard and exit. Now what's going to happen is it's going to go through this again. The flash screen will come up, but we're not going to press F2. But down here is going to appear that strange symbol. And when that happens, I'm going to press the space bar. There it is. Boom. I've pressed the space bar, and we're now in these options. It's asking us for our language. So English is the default. I'm just going to press return. Now we have this menu, and you've got a number of options here. I'm just going to take you in. You can try Ubuntu without installing, install Ubuntu, check disk for defects, or what I normally use is test memory. Now test memory, if I select that, would actually go off and start a memory checking system. And I'm just going to do this to show you what it's like. Where's wide? And you can see what's going on. It's listed the memory that's in the various slots, and the test progress is up here. Just bring you out a little bit further. This is very useful for dumpster machines. You can check what's going on. So it's giving the test number, the pass number, and where's the overall pass rate. Overall testing should be around here somewhere. Any errors, by the way, will come up here. Errors will show. And it should tell us what does it tell us? The number of overall passes. Anyway, keep an eye on it, and pass 2%. Ah, right, that's the overall progress up there. The overall pass rate. That will, so that when that reaches 100, it will start a new pass. And these are the tests that it's running, and it will tell you which test it's running, what area of memory it's doing. But the important thing is to find out how far it is through the overall test, and to note for any errors. That's the key thing you're looking at with the memory test. You have got configuration settings and other bits and pieces, but I typically don't really need to go through that. I'm going to cause a reboot. Escape, reboot. It's important when you're dealing with text menus to watch what's being said down the bottom and at the top for instructions, for what keys to press for what. Now we're just going to let this carry on. That is there. We're just going to let it carry on, and it will boot. Eventually. Now at some point I'm actually going to jump through the video a bit. I've just noticed that one of my clocks is out of whack. Eventually. Now this is going to load Ubuntu, and Ubuntu has got what's known as the Unity desktop. You typically probably don't think of a desktop type when you're running Windows. The desktop is the desktop, and you've just typically got one type of desktop for the operating system. With Linux and the various different flavors, you can have different desktops. This one is going to be Unity. There are others like KDE, GNOME, XFCE, and more. And these are the various things that you're going to be trying to see whether you like them or not. Now, in order for the Unity desktop itself, if you want more of a look at it, more of a detailed look, I suggest you go and have a look at some of the videos on YouTube, which will actually show you this desktop in all its glory. This is booting off the CD. So effectively we're getting a live boot. The hard drive is not actually being changed at the moment. We're not changing anything on the hard drive. And I'm wondering how much longer I can keep this kind of yabber up before it actually delivers us the desktop. But, there we go. The speed of this is down to the fact that it's reading from the CD. What I'm going to try and do is adjust the camera up and zoom in a bit more on the top section of this. Telephoto is that way, I think. Yes. Right. it will eventually give us a few bits and pieces, and I'll point out the main things to you. Yep, there it comes. I'm just going to try and nudge this up a little bit, or down a little bit, haha, because I'm actually viewing the camera screen the other way around. Okay, it's come to the decision that there's a network, we're offline, and that's because I haven't got this connected to the local network. Right, we're given a couple of options by this install screen. One is to try Ubuntu. We can select our language from the left. We can try it, and that's a picture of a CD in a CD-ROM tray, or we can install Ubuntu. Now we're actually going to try it, and so this is going to be a bit slow because it's all running from the CD-ROM. But if you wanted to install, you could just select that option and away you go. We've opted to try, so it's going to sort itself out. Now we have a mouse in the screen, and here we have the desktop starting itself off. Right, and here we have the top section of the Unity desktop. Much is actually built into this. At the top right hand corner you can see a main control section. System settings are here, your displays if you had multiple displays, your startup applications, this is saying that the software is currently up to date, any printers, log out, or you could suspend or shut down from here. So basically you're looking at your core system control, the equivalent of many of the system sections of the control panel, and also you've got your shutdown here, and that's in your cog at the top right. The time here gives you a calendar, and you can also adjust your time and date settings from here if you wish. I've just selected that, and you can tell it from there your location. It can also work it out automatically from the internet if you wish it. If you wish to give it that. You'll also notice that the controls here are on the left. There is a way to get these on the right if you wish. Right, so we'll close that. We have the volume control here, and as well as the overall volume control, you can mute it. You'll also see controls here for Rhythmbox. Now we're going to come to Rhythmbox in another section, but you have some very simple controls, and you have more detailed sound settings under there, which will control your output, your input, settings, and you can have different cards or devices that you want to play your sound through, or indeed record your sound from. And if there's any sound effects that you want to add, and it will show you which applications are using which devices. So if something's playing and you're not sure what, that'll tell you what's playing. And you have an overall output volume, unamplified, 100%, or you can mute the thing. You've actually got some quite reasonable controls. So if this one isn't enough, there's your straightforward volume control. You can go into more. Here is the networking. Wired network, and it's saying disconnected. If you've got wireless network, that'll appear in there as well. So you can edit your connections, and you can disable networking if you want. Here we've got the notifications. Now the notification also has built in your internet relay chats, and well, not internet relay chat, but other chat services. And you can mark yourself as available, away, busy, offline, which is what we are. You can set up your chat accounts, and you can handle a number of them. Contact lists, messaging and VoIP accounts. I'm not going to do that. Empathy. Adding a new account. It can add account for all these: Jabber, Facebook chat, Google Talk, people nearby, AIM, Gadu, Groupwise, IRC hash, whatever that is, never seen that before, Windows Live, MSN, Mixit, MySpace, same time, Yahoo, Yahoo Japan, and Zephyr. So it can handle a number of different accounts, and it will bring them all into the one interface for you. And we're going to take that offline, and you can access them under there. You can also set up a broadcast account if you wish, and the broadcast accounts are Twitter, Facebook, and Identica. What the heck is Identica? I tell you, this stuff is moving faster than I can keep track of it, but we're not going to add them. And that's controlled through a piece of software called Gwibber. You have language settings, which are easy to get to, and keyboard layout settings, all there. And on the left you have the dash. Now the dash works BIOS, just say what you want, like game. We've got A Riot software, and Solitaire and Free Solitaire installed. The idea is you just tell Dash what you want and it will give it for you, and the most recent things are stored there. Now if you're used to something like the start button, this might not be to your taste. It takes a bit of getting used to. So let's have a look. Word. Sorry, nothing that matches the search because there's no word there. That'll take us out of recent apps. And down the bottom here I think we should have anything. These are recently used, installed, apps available for download. Let's see 80 more results, and this will show us what's installed by name. So we have home folder, Gwibber, keyboard layout. You've got all sorts of bits and pieces in here. Movie player, Mines, the game. Why didn't that show up when I typed game in? Oh well. Networking tools, network connections. You can pretty much see everything in here. And what you can do with these is, if you Sudoku, you can drag your most favorite things over, and you can drop it in the sidebar and move it around wherever you want. So you can organize these things quite easily. There's Sudoku. New game, easy, medium, hard, very hard. Yeah, we'll get out of there. So basically that's how most of it is organized. There is something else which dash home. What am I looking for? I'm looking for Rhythmbox. Have I misspelt it? What is it called? RHYTH. There you go. RHYTH. Rhythmbox music player. Now we're going to go more into Rhythmbox because it is a bit it's a bit loaded with a few extra bits and pieces, but you can see that it's basically the answer to iTunes, basically, to cut a long story short. With the previous one, when I plugged in devices, I could configure them so that Rhythmbox would note them and they would appear in the bottom of the list. But you'll notice that we can, the local music appears. You can add in your podcasts, you can listen to radio. If you've got accounts, you can listen to Last.fm and Libra FM, or you can go to the Ubuntu One store. Now, Ubuntu One is a larger subject. It'll fail because we're not on the network. And you also have your playlists. Radio, you have a number of radio stations already programmed in here, and you can add yours if you wish. News, we have Boston's NPR, WBUR.org. So we could actually, if we were on the internet with this machine, we could actually start listening to Boston's NPR over the internet just here. So yeah. And you can actually buy the music, as I'll show you on another machine when I've actually got Ubuntu to a stage where I'm able to easily show it to you. But right now what I'm going to do is, helpfully here, even though we're in a stage where we're trying it, it's giving us the icon to install Ubuntu. So we're going to click on this. By the way, you have some various settings and other things in there as well. I'm going to keep you zoomed in because we're going to go through the install. And you'll see how quick this is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install this with no add-ons, which means we're not going to go out for any extra drivers, and you'll see roughly what this is like. We're going to go for English. That's our language. Continue. This is going to ask us the same questions that Windows XP or any others would ask us when it's installing. It'll ask us to make sure that we've got at least 4.4 gigabyte drive space, no problem, and is connected to the internet. It's going to give us the option to download updates while installing, so we can actually go get the updates and install them as part of this process to make it easier for us. And we can also install third-party software, which is MP3 plugin, audio codecs, and I don't know what else is included in that. But we're not going to do either of those because we're going to run, because I want to show you how to update it later. So we're going to continue. But you in reality will want to probably tick both of those boxes. Next. In a moment. Okay. Now the exact different options you'll get here will depend on what kind of options you've got. Now I know that there is already an operating system on this hard disk, and we could ask to do something else, but I'm going to go for this: erase disk and install Ubuntu. It's the easiest to do, and if you're dealing with a dumpster machine and you don't particularly care what's on it, you can just go for the erase disk and install Ubuntu. In future times, when you understand about partitioning, you'll be able to go for the something else option, and you'll be able to use some of the tricks that we use to keep our data separate from the operating system. So if we've got to reinstall the operating system at a later date, we can just do it. But for now, we're just going to erase and install. Now it's going to ask, there's an 80 gig hard drive in there, and we're going to use the entire disk for Ubuntu. It's going to delete 2 partitions, and we can go in for more control if we wanted to, but we're going to stuff that. We're just going to stay install the thing. So now it's going to start the partitioner. It's going to ask us where we are. We're just going to go for London. That's where we are, and we're going to ask it to carry on. We are in English UK. UK. Boom. Right, now it's going to ask for details. Our name, I'm just going to say Michelle. Our computer's name. Now each computer on your home network needs a unique name. We're just going to call this test desktop because I don't want it to clash with any of the other machines that are on the network. Pick a username. Now again, it's already come up with a username, and it's going to ask us to choose a password. My password is going to be test this for the demonstration. Now it's already telling us that it's a weak password. We could make that stronger by incorporating capital letters, symbols, numbers, and it will it'll warn us when we're choosing a bit of a weak password. And we've got some other options: log in automatically, require my password to log in, and or encrypt the home folder. Now personally I never go for encrypting the home folder because it's a bit heavy duty, and I've never worked out what to do in order to rescue from that kind of thing. So we're going to require the password to log in, and we will continue. Now these are all reasonably straightforward questions. We've been able to answer them very simply. You know, it is at the end of the day nice and straightforward. This is copying the files. We are currently 1724. So it's not going to get any updates for us. It's just going to install the basic operating system as is. Right, so I'm going to say welcome back whenever this is actually finished. And we are 1724 still, so we must have been at the start of that flip. And I'll come back when this is finished installing. Right, here we are, and it's 1729. It's not far from 1730, so will be beneficial. We'll say 1730, which means it would have taken 6 minutes on this reasonable dumpster machine to install the base operating system. So I'm just going to tell it to restart. This is incidentally why I'm going to ask it to restart now, and I think I've just possibly mucked it up, I don't know, by ejecting the CD early. That was probably my fault. But might restart, you never know. The operating system should be on there, so I'll just turn it off, restart, and if I've actually haven't wrecked it, Yep, I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on again. That was my own fault for ejecting the CD before Ubuntu would have ejected it. So, with a bit of luck, the operating system will just come up and say hello. The reason you got the music is because it did only take 6 minutes. So I just felt with a bit of minutes music, I'll speed it up by 6 times. So yeah, I'll speed it up by 6 times. If you want to get the precise-ish time, you can just divide it by 6, whatever. And but in other words, we're not talking an awful lot of time to get the main operating system on. There we go. Up comes the operating system. It says hello. And this is, because you can hear my voice, you can tell this is pretty much real time. So you can actually time how long it takes for this to come up. There we go. Test this. Here we go. Log in. Boom. That was the right password, wasn't it? Yeah. And this is the first time it's seen me, so it's the first time it's set up the account. And basically we are now in a working operating system. It knows the sound card. It knows there's a network card in here. What else does it know? Displays. Literally, we've just taken the CD, and in 10 minutes we've got a working system here. It knows we've got a Dell monitor on there. Resolution, it's already at the best we can get. Rotation, you can actually switch the rotation of these, by the way, quite easily, because some of these monitors are actually rotatable. I think it goes the other way. No, it goes that way. You can rotate some monitors physically. So there you go. So it knows about the display, it knows the sound. We're not going to get any sound because I haven't got anything attached. I haven't got any loudspeakers attached, and that will come later. Ooh, update information, incomplete language support. What's this saying? We can install the missing components by clicking on the run this action now and following the instructions. An active internet connection is required. Right, there's going to be a few notes that I just want to tell you about the installation process before I wrap this up. Number 1 is when you select the hard drive to install on, there will be another section which says which drive you want to install the bootloader on. Now normally if there's only one hard drive in a machine and you're installing from a CD-ROM, it knows there's only one hard drive, so it won't show you the option. But if you're installing from something like a USB stick, which in theory could take a bootloader, then it will present you with the option, and you need to double check that to make sure that it puts the bootloader on the hard disk. So that's always worthwhile checking. And one of the reasons that we're getting this is because the operating system is a bit large. It's already put an awful lot compressed into a 700 meg CD. So at some point, if you really want all the extra bells and whistles, you are going to have to connect it to the internet, which is what we're going to be doing in part 4. We're going to take a look at the basic applications that come with it, then we're going to attach it to the internet, and then we're going to get some other bits and pieces. So I hope you enjoyed part 3, having a look at the BIOS and getting the operating system installed. See you in part 4.